to work today. We're trying to make it a little safer. We're trying to make it safer for everybody. People, it's not, we're not bikes. Those aren't cars. Those aren't pedestrians. It's all people. People who, under any other circumstances, might get out of the way for you, open the door for you, slow down, pick up something that you dropped. But we've created a sociopathic roadway system here. It turns us into sociopaths. That's the worst part. Probably at least two. At least two people died in their car in Oregon last week. I can say that pretty confidently. Does anybody else want to grab the mic or have anything to say? Any announcements, anything like that?
Burnside, on both sides of the bridge, is 25 miles an hour. For a half mile over the bridge, it's 35 miles an hour.
That's fucking insane!
There's no need, there's no point.
Run on!
So now you know.
Ted Bueller speaking again. Just to let you all know, Bike Loud PDX, the organization that sponsors this, has made a call to the city to make some immediate safety improvements in the wake of the injuries and death of a bicyclist in the last 2 months. And some of the things that we're asking for we think are really simple, and we're not quite sure why they're not already done. But let me just tell you what they are for starters. One is zero tolerance for speeding. What do y'all think? Zero tolerance? Could you all get down with zero tolerance for speeding? And then another thing is zero tolerance for running red lights. What do y'all think about zero tolerance for running red lights? Would that be agreeable? And then another thing is to stop designing city streets for conflict. In a lot of places, when they've redone the streets, they've done more mixing of bicycles and pedestrians and cars than they used to. For instance, North Williams Avenue from Kenmore up to Skidmore, they took away a bike lane and just mixed up cars and bikes in a single lane. And we just don't think that that really helps out with safety. We think it's more important to prioritize safety than it is to prioritize car speed. And the other thing we're asking for is more interim solutions, like the NATO bike path that was done last week and the week before, and the 3rd Avenue street improvement and temporary diverters. We'd really like to see the city put up more temporary traffic calming devices. So that's what Bike Loud PDX is working on now. If you want to be more involved with Bike Loud PDX, you can sign up for the email listserv at bikeloudpdx.org. And you can also like us on Facebook if you just want the lightweight version of events and discussion. Thank you.
You know, timing is always difficult for organizing events, especially when you're trying to organize it right when something happens, like this tragedy. But I think that when we get out in the streets after these tragedies, it really highlights that a real person was killed in a real world situation. And I really appreciate the fact that so many cyclists are down here to stand for pedestrians, because of course we're all pedestrians. And my hope is that these kind of actions can happen anytime anybody dies on our streets in any mode of transportation in Portland. And I'm wondering how many people would be willing, if they're available, to come to actions like this regardless of the mode of transportation. Are people willing to do that? Let's make it happen. If you live in a neighborhood or work in a neighborhood where something like this happens, something drastic and tragic, then organize it. Make it happen. Put it out there on the Bike Loud list. Put it on shifttobikes.org. Whatever networks you have, use them. And it doesn't have to be 3 people, 2 people, just you. We have to stand for this stuff, and if you do it in your neighborhood, when the tragedy happened at Cleveland High School, I had the day off. I was able to organize it. My son goes to Cleveland High School. My two younger sons are going to go to Cleveland High School. This stuff matters to me directly, and I have an ability to speak to it. I work downtown. I cross these bridges every day. I see people speeding on these bridges every day. All of them. They're being unsafe. So I have a place to speak from right here. I have a vested interest in this. So if we all go to our respective neighborhoods, and anytime we hear about a tragedy like this, let's organize these kind of events. If I'm available, I'll be there. I won't always be available. I just happen to be available today.
It's illegal to touch a phone when you're driving. Yeah, you can't be holding a phone, period. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Hands-free. Only hands-free. And that should be fucking illegal, too.
Another button up here, Bluetooth, is it connected? Connect, press 2, 3, 4, 7 to connect. No good way to do it.
Most of the folks here brought a bicycle, is that correct?
Yeah.
Did you? No. Do people want to ride? What's the feeling, or is this what we want to do here?
Yeah, I'd ride.
Just stay here.
For now.
Yeah.
I think this is
I
pretty
mean, you
strong
got
myself.
you got people right here that are filming, that's standing up with you guys, that don't have bikes.
Well, they've got a lot of coverage already, so.
Yeah, but your coverage will go bye-bye.
A
The
couple of weeks ago,
media
there was a
media can't
very
keep up
important
with
meeting
you.
with the mayor and Commissioner Novick about
And you got 3 people from Film the Police out here.
Those terrible crashes out on Powell Boulevard. I was invited to the meeting, but I couldn't attend due to my work schedule. But I sent them an email, and I'd like to share some highlights from that. My thoughts on the problem are that we live in a very permissive society and depend on others to respect and follow a lot of complicated, not well understood rules intended to keep us from harming each other. This is obviously not working very well on public roadways. The problem is worsened by the imbalance of power created by motor vehicles. They often exist in far greater numbers than other road users like us, and they create a false sense of superiority. More importantly, the consequences of a driver not following the rules can be severe or fatal for the more vulnerable cyclists or pedestrians, even when the driver is not physically at risk from a crash. So I gave some ideas on solutions. There needs to be an immediate increase in messaging that all road users need to be alert and focused on their travel in the public space. We need some
Hey, join us!
education efforts on the most basic but specific rules of the road that deal with points of conflict, especially intersections between different modes, and most importantly, emphasize that everyone, pets, cyclists, drivers, enforcement planners,
Hey, join us!
and decision makers
Join
need to
us!
raise their level of personal responsibility. Take
Join
part in
us!
solutions. There needs to be an increase in funding for and direction from management and the elected officials to put a higher priority on traffic enforcement, especially on Portland's high crash corridors. And yes, this puts a greater burden and consequences on motor vehicle drivers, and likely to be met with public resistance. Negative